Robotaxi event on Sunday in Austin, Texas. There will be a limited number of robotaxis.
L3 and those higher, more advanced technologies, including Robotaxi, are growing at the highest rate.
This software, it's nowhere near done.
Americans already lose about $3,000 a year per capita every year to crash costs.
Because it's the scale and scope. I mean, John, my view is like 25 or 30 cities in the next year.
All that and more. So let's get to it. Tesla stock finished the closing bell on Friday up just a little bit, plus a little bit more in the after hours. The stock is currently sitting at $322.70. In the wee hours of Friday morning, certain mega accounts of Tesla were receiving these invites to go to the Tesla Robotaxi launch in Austin on Sunday. This had most legacy news media outlets in a tizzy, rushing for more information, even reaching out to some of these big Tesla influencer accounts so that they could catch a ride. That was met with, a stonewall, if you will. Let's see how the legacy media tries to digest this, new development.
Tesla shares are slightly higher in pre-market trading ahead of its Robotaxi event on Sunday in Austin, Texas. The launch will be small with a limited number of cars and human teleoperators ready to intervene if self-driving cabs run into problems.
That's pretty standard stuff. I mean, there's no autonomous vehicle operator that doesn't have remote operators, but I get it because it's Tesla. We got to hold them to a different standard, right?
Tesla's Robotaxi service set for a trial launch in Austin, Texas this weekend. Phil LeBeau has a look at what to expect. Hey, Phil.
Joe, if you were expecting a lot of hoopla and a lot of Tesla zooming around Austin, you might want to dial back your expectations. We don't know exactly what Tesla will show on Sunday or much at all. But the expectation is that this is going to be somewhat of a subdued launch of the Robotaxi service. There will be a limited number of Robotaxis that will be starting their service. And keep in mind, the customers are by invitation. So it's not like if you're in Austin this weekend and say, you know, I want to take a Robotaxi. That ain't the way it's going to work.
Sounds similar to how Waymo operated when they released in these various different cities. Invitation only, limited number of cars, and then we'll watch it grow over time. I really don't get why people assume that Tesla was going to unleash the hose instead of providing a little trickle of what they could provide. I mean, safety is paramount, right?
A much anticipated event this Sunday, even though there have been some suggestions of a potential call for this to be even pushed back further. But let's start with you, Ken. I mean, what are you expecting from this event as far as just how much hype there's been around it and also just how unusual it is that it's being held, obviously, on a Sunday?
Well, the Sunday, I think, is really unusual because Tesla is so good at media.
That's fair. Tesla is pretty good at media, but you know who might be a little bit better at media? I don't know. Homar's blog, Sawyer Merritt, Dirty Tesla, Black Tesla, AI Driver, these people that have these huge, massive followings. I wonder who received the invites to test out this software in Austin. Really a brilliant strategy from Tesla, giving the keys to these influencers who's very knowledgeable about Tesla software and will have some very keen, valuable feedback to offer the company. Remember, Tesla intends to start this off slow to get it right. There doesn't need to be some ticker tape parade down South Congress commemorating this monumental event. No, let those major accounts and some of us lesser ones do the job for you.
But the thing that I'm excited about is the impact Tesla getting into the auto taxi business is going to have on the market as a whole. When you think about it, Waymo made a little bit of a splash when they first launched, and now Zoox is launching, and you just don't get the buzz. When Tesla makes a move, everybody pays attention, and I'm really excited to see what this does for Tesla stock and what it does for the auto taxi as a real thing, because it's going to elevate the conversation from these city-by-city rollouts to really having to have a national conversation about when do auto taxis become something that's spread all across America. So I think it'll be great, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of flash and hype.
It's a big focus for the market as to how it compares with Waymo. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk around that already, obviously operating in the Austin market. How are you watching this launch?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about my favorite topic, right, on the robotaxi and autonomous driving. From our AlixPartners' latest global automotive outlook, we estimated that ADAS and autonomous driving markets, which is only just a supplier to OEM market, will grow at 11% year over year, which is much higher than the 2% overall auto market growth. L2 Plus and 2 Plus Plus are still the major driving forces, but L3 and those higher, more advanced technologies, including Robotaxi, are growing at the highest rate. We're also expecting it to continue to grow at 40% CAGR from after 2030 to 2035.
Tesla is tentatively set to begin offering robotaxi rides, as you know, in Austin, Texas on Sunday. Wedbush analyst Dan Ives today says that autonomous is the next key driver for Tesla, potentially fueling it to a $2 trillion valuation. But our next guest is sounding some alarms. Last week, his organization, the Dawn Group, staged a demonstration in which a Tesla in full self-driving mode drove past a stopped bus and hit a dummy resembling a child in 8 separate trials.
The Dawn Group and Tesla Takedown, mind you, they collaborated to do some testing in Austin around June 12th or so. Funny how that's when Bloomberg thought Tesla was going to be doing this significant launch of the Robotaxi. How would Alonzo Harris from Training Day put it? This ain't checkers, motherfucker, chess!
The Dawn Group's co-founder Dan O'Dowd joins us this morning. He's also the co-founder and CEO of Green Hill Software, which sells technology to Tesla competitors like Ford and Toyota.
No conflict of interest there, right?
The video demonstration got a lot of views in the last several days. What did it tell you?
Well, it's very clear. This software does not know how to recognize a school bus. And therefore, not recognizing the school bus, it doesn't realize the law that you have to stop when a school bus stops and the lights come on or flashing. Now, you're required to simply stop and wait for the children to clear and wait for the school bus driver to turn off the lights, and then you can proceed. If you proceed past a school bus, like we see right here in the videos, it will run down a child that comes out from behind the bus. That's why there's a law that you have to stop. We wanted to show this. We showed this over 2.5 years ago. We demonstrated this. We did a New York Times full-page ad showing this, saying this happens, and no one did anything. The government didn't do anything. Tesla didn't acknowledge it. Tesla didn't fix it. That didn't work. So we did a Super Bowl commercial. We showed a Tesla running down a kid as it goes past a school bus.
What Dan says is true, right? The software may be buggy in some cherry-picked situations. I concur, but last I checked, they were using FSD version 13.2.9 supervised. What the does that have to do with what Tesla is doing with their Robotaxi service here on Sunday? Let's just say that Dan O'Dowd is doing his rounds. His presence on X has been elevated because Tesla is about to put him out of business. Now, I'll be the first to admit, especially since Dan O'Dowd used one of my videos from this very channel, clipped a little snippet to prove his point about school zones. Considering that the school was being constructed and the area was under heavy construction, he chose to block all that out to highlight some fact that the software is defective. But of course, it is a supervised software, Dan. Any software that I'm running that is supervised is on me. I must make the ultimate decision to either break the law or not break the law. So too must the individual supervising during your bus/mannequin challenge.
Well, the technology, I think a reasonable person can assume, is going to get better over time. Does any of this mean that Tesla shouldn't be allowed to run some geofenced operations in a limited location?
Yes, the product they haven't finished implementing it. It doesn't know what a fire truck is, so it doesn't know that it has to pull over. It doesn't know what a police car or an ambulance is. It doesn't know what a do not enter sign is, does not know what a one-way sign is. This software, it's nowhere near done. And it's 3 years. We've been doing this for 3 years, and they haven't implemented any of those things. They haven't solved any of those problems. They haven't said when they're going to solve them. You're putting products on the road that will just ignore all the warnings on the road and drive right into trouble.
First and foremost, Dan O'Dowd has been testing FSD for years, running Super Bowl ads, desperately trying to get the attention of NHTSA. All of the money he spent trying to expose Tesla, all for naught, down the drain. Truly fear-mongering at its finest.
Have you done similar tests, equivalent tests on Waymo?
We've been in Waymos and tried it, but we can't buy a Waymo right now. We would love to, but you can't get one.
So you're saying there's no comp here?
There's no comps?
Get 'em! Yeah, you've been in a Waymo. You've also been in a Tesla. You don't know what Tesla's doing for their Robotaxi, just like you can't purchase one for Waymo. Says a lot about Waymo's operation that if you were to order a Waymo, you wouldn't be able to replicate any of these tests. Simply put, there'd be too many variables. These sterile, heavy-handed tests that they're conducting with supervised version 13.2.9 and trying to imprint that on what they may expect from the Robotaxi, that in itself is ridiculous. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, fear-mongering at its finest.
Anyone who is worried about the safety involved here, your data shows, look, we should be pursuing this path.
Yeah, so in an early paper, just looking at the kinds of technologies that auto manufacturers already have, we expected about an 85% crash reduction and fatality reduction and crash cost reduction, which is a lot of money because Americans already lose about $3,000 a year per capita every year to crash costs.
Damn!
And what we've already seen is Waymo is hitting that target on the streets of San Francisco, Phoenix, and LA, where it's been comparing itself to the other drivers that are on those exact same streets.
Of course, cost to vehicle owners, cost of life as well, Kara, is something that just everyone is so focused on. But there has to be regulation that keeps up. China is going at this full speed. So is Asia. We were just talking about how Baidu is rolling out across Singapore, Malaysia. Are we keeping pace with how quickly the innovation could change here in the US?
Well, I think so, thanks to Tesla. But of course, they also have a gigafactory in China. And so China may have access to all of that intellectual property and be able to mimic it quickly to catch up with Tesla, with a Chinese-based company.
Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen, what comes to mind is in Iron Man 2, they're trying to explain that the suit needs to be turned over to the government because other people are going to catch up to his technology of Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr., who indeed based his character of Tony Stark on Elon Musk, proceeds to go through a laundry list of countries trying to reproduce the Iron Man suit at their grave dismay. That's exactly how I envision people trying to replicate what Tesla is doing with their pure vision system and neural nets. Many will try, but they will soon find out this shit as easy as Tesla makes it look.
Okay, so thanks to Tesla, thanks to Waymo, thanks to Zoox, who we had on earlier in the week, there is plenty of companies that are showing that it can be done. Just remind us of also not the cost implications from an insurance perspective, but more broadly, how much easier, how much more cost efficient will it be to make these vehicles? Because look, Zoox is saying it's going to make 10,000 in the next few years or so per year in their new facility. But all of these means they're pretty expensive pieces of equipment as it stands.
Right. So people are estimating that the Waymo vehicles right now, which are on a very expensive Jaguar I-Pace, which is a suggested retail price of $75,000, I think. So add another $75,000 to get all of the LiDAR and everything else installed. But if you can install it all directly on the assembly line in one coherent piece, the cost comes down a bit. And of course, Waymo's not in the business of actually manufacturing the vehicles, and Tesla is. And if you go to the Tesla website, I think they're offering the technology for $8,000 up front, plus another $100 a month. And so that starts to sound pretty reasonable.
Correction, Professor, you can purchase it outright for $8,000, not have to worry about that $100 a month. Or You cannot do the $8,000 up front and just pay $100 a month to get this amazing product. But please, continue.
Talk to us, therefore, about how FSD seems to work at the moment, because we hear on both sides of the equation. Many love it, many feel that it is incredibly efficient. Others say there are still so many holes, so many ways in which that it underperforms, we cannot roll it out yet in the United States.
Well, it's already out there. So a lot of us have friends and neighbors and people just alongside us in the traffic stream, and you may not notice because there is somebody in that driver's seat, but they are in FSD mode. And so I believe they've driven billions of miles already, whereas the Waymo fleet has gone about 60 million miles of rider only, so nobody in the driver's seat. And that's the big jump here, is that they're tweaking the algorithm so that the car will be able to move without somebody in that driver's seat, and will do a lot of the parking, which they're not doing right now for the owners of FSD who paid that $8,000 plus the $100 a month, and of course have to be in that driver's seat, legally have to be a licensed driver and have to keep their eyes open, much of the time. But when I was in that driver's seat, I did nothing. It was very precise. It was very impressive on very complex network here, the routes that we were taking. But it was broad daylight. And the one thing I noticed is, it does go above the posted speed limit to keep up with the traffic around it, which the Waymo vehicles don't do. And it also came, it was much more confident around pedestrians and scooters and cyclists than I would normally be as a driver myself.
Not a whole lot to unpack there, but again, I just want to say that it's $8,000 or $100, and this is subject to change, right? Depending on demand and all these other situations and nuances, prices could go up or down. Non-Tesla vehicles interacting with the superchargers over there in Europe, yeah, they've seen a price increase. Tesla is able to take data in real time and then project outward a few months, a few years, and decide what their pricing should or shouldn't be. Me personally, I pay for my FSD up front because I have no idea where the technology is going to go, how fast it's going to scale, and what demand might look like in the next 12 to 18 months. Imagine purchasing Netflix for your lifetime, locking in a one-time fee, instead of, having it go up from $7.99 to $11.99, from $11.99 to $17.99 per month, from $17.99 per month to $25 per month. You see where I'm getting at? You might pay one huge lump sum for your life, but I kind of equate it to having a rent-controlled apartment that you purchased in 1970 in 2025.
Alphabet's Waymo is way ahead of Tesla on autonomous execution. So how much better does Tesla have to be? You have to believe its model is to believe it's $1 trillion opportunity for Tesla alone.
Yeah, look, Waymo clearly, the big head start, but 4 cities, $230,000 cars, right? I mean, my view is the golden age of autonomous starts on Sunday in Austin for Tesla, because it's the scale and scope. I mean, John, my view is like 25 or 30 cities in the next year. And as they start scaling cybercabs and get to true level 4, I believe it's a $1 trillion opportunity valuation for Tesla. And I think this is actually the start of their biggest chapter of growth and actually valuation upside.
Remember, Tesla has on the docket the Cybercab, what they showed off at 1010. The Cybercab has no controls, no steering wheel, no pedals for accelerator or brake. This is supposed to be in full production by the first half of 2026. On top of these having the sole purpose of Robotaxi, Tesla plans to push these things out faster than what they do with the Model Y. And currently, the Model Y is the gold standard for production of automobiles.
Don't they have to be almost perfect to get to 25 to 30 cities within a year, have that kind of scale? And so how do you factor risk into this model too? I mean, to ramp this, Tesla has to first put its own vehicles on the street, but it also wants Tesla owners to offer up their cars as well. Do they need that to achieve the profitability that make them worth $1 trillion?
It's a great question. I don't think that they need that. I mean, to me, it's really, when I view cybercabs and where I see this all going, I mean, I think ultimately 20% of the transportation industry, in my view, will be autonomous when we look out the next 6, 7, 10 years. I think Tesla, it starts off with, when you look at what's happening with Cybercab, but ultimately other automakers, they're going to have to OEM that technology from Tesla. So my view is that this is the start. When you think about AI and you think about true AI and really what the golden goose is going to be, autonomous, Tesla, I believe, is going to lead this market handily. And ultimately, it all starts on Sunday with the launch in Austin. But I think it's step by step. They're going to show that they could get true level 4. And I think this is, we're going to look back. Sunday, I think, is a historical moment for Tesla.
In conclusion, Dan Ives did a pretty good job of the summary, but I'd like to add, don't let Dan O'Dowd's fear-mongering prevent you from getting in the safest vehicle known to man. When FSD is engaged, you are less likely to be involved in a crash. If you happen to be involved in a crash, you're more than likely going to survive that unscathed. I use FSD every time I'm in the vehicle. I kind of demand it of myself because I know it's a better driver than I am. If it does happen to make a mistake, I'm supervising. I can look and see if there's anything that's out of the ordinary. My spidey sense will tick up. 40,000 plus deaths on US highways every year. That is unacceptable. And this technology from Tesla is what's going to put a sizable dent in reducing that figure. That's all I've got for you today. Be easy. Peace.